On October the 14th, 1947, Charles Elwood Chuck Yeager became, at 24, the first pilot to travel faster than sound in level flight and ascent. In the years following World War II, the big idea of breaking the sound barrier was a secret goal of many in the US Air Force. The X-1 rocket-powered aircraft was launched from the belly of a specially modified B-29 bomber, and flight number 50 was the first one where the X-1 recorded supersonic flight at Mach 1.06 or 1,299 kilometers per hour.
This was really a beautiful little airplane. It came along at the right time, and I think we got so tied up with the airplane, and we're so happy that we got the thing supersonic.
50 years after making history by becoming the first person to break the sound barrier, Chuck Yeager, in a reenactment of the flight that was heard around the world, flew a plane at the speed of sound again. Yeager, now an Air Force Brigadier General, was at the controls of a modern fighter instead of the orange X-1 rocket plane, nicknamed Glamorous Glennis after his wife, in which he became the first man to break the sound barrier. This time, he was again accompanied by Bob Hoover, who was his backup in 1947 and who photographed the X-1 hurtling past with characteristic diamond-shaped shockwaves blasting from its 4 rockets. Then an ace combat pilot, Yeager was testing a rocket-powered research plane, the X-1, when he pushed the craft past the sound barrier for the first time. Yeager, who had distinguished himself in World War II, went on to train a generation of NASA astronauts. Yeager epitomised a new breed of crack pilots who risked, and often lost, their lives flying a variety of experimental craft from the 1940s to the 1960s.
I just tell people I'm no hero. I'm just a kid that, you know, is the right place at the right time.
At precisely 10:34 a.m, the sonic boom reverberated around Edwards Air Force Base in California's Mojave Desert, as the then 74-year-old Yeager piloted an F-15 fighter through the sound barrier at more than 30,000 feet or 10,000 meters above the base. Another difference this time was that the world heard about his flight. In 1947, the Air Force and the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics, the forerunner of NASA, kept his feat secret until the 15th of June the following year. When he did it the first time in 1947, the sonic boom reverberated from Southern California around the world, opening up a future of supersonic flight and space travel. The speed of sound, Mach 1, is roughly 660 miles per hour, or 1,056 kilometers per hour, at 40,000 feet, or 13,333 meters, and many experts feared his plane would disintegrate when he did what no other aircraft had done before. In a post-flight ceremony that also unveiled a postal stamp commemorating the 50th anniversary of the first supersonic flight, Yeager returned the keys of all the Air Force planes he had flown during his career. However, he kept the keys to the F-15 he had just flown, saying he would use them on an exhibition flight the following weekend. Yeager also thanked the Air Force, saying that, "What I am today, I owe to the Air Force." As part of the festivities commemorating the event, the United States Postal Service unveiled a stamp honouring the X-1's flight.
You have to be dead 10 years before they'll name a stamp after you, but the X-1 is an airplane, so they're honouring the airplane. But if you look in the cockpit real close, you'll see my nose sticking out.
At the time, Yeager, who was 74 years old and still in the cockpit much of the time, said he was finally giving some thought to retiring.
I had never stopped, but having done it for 55 years now, I figure it's interfering with my fishing, so I'm thinking about hanging it up.
Yeager was one of a handful of pilots immortalised in Tom Wolfe's book, The Right Stuff. But unlike John Glenn, Gus Grissom and the others, Yeager did not go to join the exclusive club of America's astronauts. Instead, he chose to stay behind the controls of jet aircraft. Aircraft of the like that helped Charles Elwood Chuck Yeager achieve the big idea of supersonic flight.